We're back in Industry City in Brooklyn for more of our special Word from the Curb broadcast, but regular listeners also know that it is Wednesday, and that means it's time for Politics Brief. It's our weekly segment where we break down the news out of City Hall and Albany. Today, with early voting underway and 1 week until the general election for mayor, we are joined by our two New York City politics reporters, Elizabeth Kim and Brigid Bergin. Brigid, we're going to start with you. You and our colleague Joe Hong have been reporting on early voting turnout so far. What can you tell us about the numbers?
Well, they're very interesting, Sean. Overall turnout so far is 5 times what it was this point 4 years ago.
Wow.
So nearly 300,000 people have cast ballots so far. But unlike the primary, where we saw those younger voters really driving the turnout throughout all of early voting, it's actually older voters who are coming out in stronger numbers. The largest share of votes so far is from voters 65 to 74. And voters 55 and older make up slightly more than 51% of the vote. And of course, I had to bring the numbers for right here in Sunset Park. So here, turnout has been kind of light. About 4,600 people have voted so far. The highest turnout so far is in the Upper East Side. More than 3 times as many people have voted there.
So there was a Quinnipiac poll that dropped this afternoon. That poll shows that Mamdani now has a 10-point lead over Andrew Cuomo. That's down from 13. So, Brigid, it looks like he's still in a comfortable position, but I'm wondering from you whether you see any worrying signs in that data that, we call the tabs, the
crosstabs of that poll. And we looked at the previous Quinnipiac poll that showed the race was much tighter between Cuomo and Mamdani with those older voters. And this most recent poll essentially shows the same thing, that the race remains much tighter when those older voters are asked who they're supporting.
Do we know, Brigid, about what people are saying about what is leading them to make up their minds about who they're voting for?
So we have been out to some poll sites. We love to talk to voters. We went to 2 poll sites on the Upper East Side where the turnout has been the highest so far. And honestly, we're getting mixed responses. We found older voters who support Cuomo and older voters who support Mamdani. So we'll play a little sound. Here's a Cuomo supporter, Patricia Palermo. She's a realtor. She's over 55. She says she supports Cuomo because he brings experience to the position.
He knows all the players, and I think he would be enormously helpful to New York City.
Now, also in that same neighborhood, photographer Joanna Merkins, who is 27, said that Mamdani is the first candidate that makes her feel proud to be a New Yorker.
I think he really represents the love that people have for each other in the city, and to see how the energy has just changed around politics and how people want to fight for each other has been really incredible.
And we didn't actually find any younger voters who said that they had voted for Cuomo.
Liz, you've been working on a story about the role of black voters in this election. Can you give us a preview?
Sure. Mamdani really defied traditional political wisdom when he won the Democratic primary without a black majority. Now, traditionally, the city's Democratic coalition is made up of Jewish voters and also black voters. So he instead built a multiracial coalition that included Latino voters. It also included Asian voters. And what he also did was he ran up the score in gentrified neighborhoods. And that has led to a whole conversation about black voters, because black voters are also facing this population loss in New York City, and it's raising this question about whether they're losing political influence. Andrew Cuomo has really seized on this narrative. Last week, he held a press conference with Mayor Adams where he said that he is seeking to win the votes of quote-unquote real New Yorkers. Now, nothing stirs a conversation in this state like what is a real New Yorker, right? But he is really kind of tapping into that idea of a real New Yorker, of a long-time established New Yorker versus a newcomer, and, these concerns about gentrification. Adams, who has endorsed Cuomo, has called Mamdani the quote-unquote king of gentrifiers, and that is a line of attack that is aimed at older Black residents, that if you elect Mamdani, that Mamdani would somehow accelerate gentrification because his supporters are these newcomers that are changing the character of the neighborhoods.
And what's striking to me about some of this is we have seen Mamdani try to make inroads into lots of different communities across New York City, but particularly among Black voters. I went out into Southeast Queens during the primary just to hear what voters there were saying. It's such a heart of middle-class Black New York in the city. And a lot of voters I spoke to told me that they were Cuomo supporters, and they talked about how their family had supported Governor Mario Cuomo. But at the same time, the Mamdani campaign was still out there canvassing. They were still going door to door trying to make inroads in those communities. And I think what we're going to see next week may be how well they've done so far.
Yeah. So, again, we're 6 days away from the election. The candidates are making their final arguments to voters. How are you thinking of it in terms of what they're saying?
Well, we're really seeing Cuomo's rhetoric grow a lot darker in this final stretch. And by that, I could give you a couple of examples that have been reported. There was him laughing at a WABC radio host who was trying to suggest that Mamdani couldn't be trusted to govern under a terrorist attack. There was an AI video that Cuomo's campaign said was inadvertently released, and that AI video depicted Mamdani supporters as criminals. There is a Black shoplifter wearing a keffiyeh. There is a depiction of Mamdani eating with his hands. And just this past weekend, we saw a former Trump aide put out a tweet with a photo of the Twin Towers on fire. And she wrote, "Never again elect Andrew Cuomo. We have to save our city."
Yeah.
Now, Mamdani has responded to this by saying that this kind of Islamophobia is inexcusable. And he really gave quite an emotional speech last week about how Islamophobia has not only shaped his life in this race, but that of his friends and family.
We're going to have to leave it there because we have run out of time. Sorry, Brigid, that we didn't get your hot take on the election, but...
I'll be watching turnout.
Yeah, exactly. Brigid's going to have her eye on the turnout. That's politics reporters Elizabeth Kim and Brigid Bergin. Thanks so much to you both.